Hey, read through the word. Today is February 24th, and today's lesson is called Appointed Times. We are in Leviticus chapter 23 today, and I want to read these 4 verses. It says this: The Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. These are the Lord's appointed festivals." And hold on to that moment for a minute, because it actually translated better is appointed times, and we have one Hebrew word we're going with on that, which you are to proclaim as official days for holy assemblies. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day of complete rest, an official day for holy assembly. It is the Lord's Sabbath day, and it must be observed wherever you live. In addition to the Sabbath, these are the Lord's appointed festivals or appointed times, the official days for holy assembly that are to be celebrated at their proper times each year. All right, I am going to, I have to tell Linda, I'm going to have to link this, and I have to tell her, remind her to switch this. So I know she loves it when I do this kind of stuff. All right, this is a Jewish calendar. Notice it's a circle. This is a circle of the appointed festivals, the appointed times. And if you've been around here for a while, you know I love this. There is, now I referenced that this is actually a lesson I taught in my Sunday school class. It was a 2-week lesson. This was part 1, what I'm going to condense into today's lesson for us. This is part 1 of a 2-part lesson. Actually, it was this part today was on to Acts 2, chapter 2, verse 1. And because it just says, and it was Pentecost. That was all. And then I went into what does that mean, all this kind of stuff. So this is where all of this comes into play. Now, what I need you to see is I think on this day before, I have taught this. Same. It's like, here's the thing with the Bible. I'm not going to come up with anything new. Like I tell my students, if anybody tells you, oh, I've got something brand new about the Bible, run. That's called heresy. The Bible's been around for thousands of years. There's nothing new. There's nothing new. Now, it might be the first time you've seen something, or it might be new to you, but I'm not coming up with anything brand new. So sometimes it gets to, but I love this. I could, like I told you, I could talk about this forever. There's so much about the Bible I could talk about forever. That's why I teach the Bible so much. Because it's just what I do. And it's what I love, and God has made me for it. I get energized from teaching the Bible. I mean, I love y'all. I don't see you. But when I'm in a room full of people, and people talk back and ask questions, boy, do I get real excited. So, and some of you have been at when we did Determined live in person with people. I mean, boy, that really gets me when I can talk, when people ask questions and we can talk and all that. So it is this idea of 3. This is my tagline for this lesson. That as we look at this and we see God working, we're going to see that God uses the chronos of the moedim for kairos. So let's talk about that for a minute. So chronos, think chronological, what we do here. Chronos represents quantitative time, like time on a clock or a watch or a calendar. And then there is kairos. So these are both Greek words. So I'm doing a little bit of back and forth because originally I was teaching this from a New Testament perspective and then had to go back into the Old Testament and pull a Hebrew word out. So in the sentence, we've got some Greek and Hebrew going both ways. So there is chronos, chronological time. There is kairos. Kairos is qualitative time, signifying the perfect moment or the right time for action. And for those of you who are in Read Through the Word and actually do come to my Sunday morning class, I'm sorry, it's a refresher. It's a repeat. So, but this is probably one of my favorite lessons. That like I say that all the time, that I love this lesson. It is because what it is Chronos is about minutes. Kairos is about moments. So as we talked about, remember we went back to day 1 of this year. One big story. That God himself stands outside of time and space. My kids will say, the box, Mrs. Nance. I said, yes, the box. God created the box called time and space. He stands outside of it. He uses time and space to tell us his story of redemption for his people. And God uses time in a very special way. Now, we could get super duper nerdy and go through all the actual physical dates and what they've occurred. Now, that kind of stuff you love. If you've ever read anything by Jonathan Cahn, he does that really, really well. And so like The Harbinger, Red Dragon, he's got quite a few books. I just listened to him the other day. And he can pull out exactly dates and tell you on Nissan 15, all of these things happen. But this is not outside of God. That God has, from the moment he created time, he's done so for a purpose. And the feasts and festivals are all purpose. Now, I showed you a picture, and I'll link it for you, where it's a cycle. The year is a cycle. So, in what we see here is the cycle of the Moedim. So, God had instructed his people in the Old Testament, in Leviticus chapter 23, about the Moedim, which means the appointed times. So, what we see is how God has charted time with us. So, in Genesis 1, God creates. He creates light, and he separates the light from the darkness on day 1. And on day 4, he creates the bodies to rule over the day and night, the sun and the moon. He gives those to us to count Chronos time. A day in the Bible was from evening to evening. The rotation of the Earth's axis determines the length of a day. Now, a month in the Bible, so the Jewish, as you're in Leviticus, when they're talking a month, it's a lunar month. It is not a solar month. They are counting around, so a month in the Bible is defined by the moon's revolution around the earth from new moon to new moon is a month. So one new moon is equal to one lunar month. And the lunar calendar focuses on light and dark. So a year in the Bible is defined by the solar cycle. A solar year is the time it takes for the earth to rotate around the sun. So seasons are then established by the relative position of the sun and the moon. So the solstices and the equinoxes and wherever we are. That's why I am nerdy about astronomy and seeing what God has done, because he did this all for a purpose so that we could chart time and watch how he tells his story of love with us using the sun, the moon, the stars. Not that I'm telling you to go read what the sun, moon, stars or believe in a horoscope or anything. No, stay away from those things. I'm telling you, God has done this. Why that's a perversion of what God has done. God has set them in space to mark time for us, so that by that we can see how he works with us. So, the only thing that is set different, so the sun and the moon establish the day, it establishes a month, and establishes a year. The only way we get a 7-day week is because God's creational order. God's creational order establishes the 7-day week. There's no way by man we could come up with a 7-day week. We wouldn't come up with a 7-day week. Only God could do that. And he did it in creational order. So Leviticus 23 is the single chapter of the entire Tanakh that sums up everything. God's eternal plan from chaos to eternity is revealed through the nature and the timing of the 7 annual feasts of the Lord. The entire human race now exists between 2 of these feasts. So sacrifice is the major feature of the feast. Now, believers are not responsible for keeping these feasts, but the knowledge of them enhances and I would say increases our faith. Because Jesus kept every single one of them, even celebrating Pesach, which is Passover, on his last earthly night. So God has established his people. So when you look at their festivals and their feasts and their harvests and their planting and everything, there was not a moment of time throughout any season in their life that it was not all about God. A reminder that they are his people and he is their God. And he even set the sun, the moon, and the stars and everything in existence to show his people his love. We live in a world now where we don't even look up into the sky, where we don't notice the sun or the moon or the stars, or we don't see what God has put in the skies because the heavens declare the glory of God. They do. We've stopped looking to see because they're still declaring the glory of God. Are we? So Leviticus 23 shows you how God has used Chronos of the Moedim for Kairos, because everything is all about the moment in time where God is writing his story of redemption and love for his people. Because he's amazing. He really is. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.